Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a Premier League presentation bringing you guys a game between paiN Gaming and 3D Clan. This is a best of 3 series which is now in its final game, Game 3, both teams 1-1 here, and we'll have to see how they will proceed. This has been a very exciting series thus far. Some really awesome play last game, particularly by Sharfik on his Storm Spirit, and I wouldn't be entirely surprised if paiN Gaming didn't just give out a respect ban right off the bat to that. But either way, we'll see how it proceeds, and I myself and Blaze, accompanied with me is Rainmaker. How's it going, man?
Oh, it's going really good. We've had a couple of really good matches, and I just really excited to see it again. Hopefully, we're able to go and see both teams kind of do what they want to do, and I feel like we're kind of seeing the styles of each team coming out. 3D is full of this very high-octane, aggressive play, while paiN, they're looking to go and play S5. They're looking to push down towers and really capitalize on any small mistake that 3D makes. So this entire match is going to be balanced on the edge of the knife. If 3D is able to go and get that good start, to start snowballing their key heroes like key players like Sharfik, like Nexus, like Dread, if they're able to get that good start, they can use that momentum and just ride out the mid game. But if they slip up, even for an instant, you can be sure that paiN will be there to punish them. And when they do, they're going to go and transition that into tower pushes, Roche fights, and just end the game before Nexus is able to get active.
Most definitely. So we do see first pick coming out for paiN Gaming. They're going to once again pick up that Shadow Demon, trying to secure their lanes as best as possible. Maybe a little bit of, if they're looking for counteracting a enemy anti-mage, something along those lines, that might be a good option there. But in turn, Rubik getting picked up. So we're seeing a lot more love to these, what would generally be considered second-tier supports. A lot of really large amount of lane presence in these two, through disruption, telekinesis, that kind of thing. But as far as their immense amounts of utility through, when we compare them to Keeper the Light, who got banned out, of course, and Wisp with that global presence, it's definitely an interesting style to see compared to what is normally put up in the highest tiers of games. But either way, Rubik, Darkseer are going to be a very powerful combo.
Yeah, paiN might actually just be looking to get access into that Nyx again and just cement their lineup that way, because Shadow Demon is one of the strongest heroes against Nyx, against Lifestealer, because that Demonic Purge does go through Rage, and that means that you're going to have a Nyx that is, that Romero-style zombie instead of the more recent, super fast ones.
Most definitely. That really does make it so that they could be much more potent as far as their output there. We saw a lot of really aggressive play when I believe it was Fuga, no, it was Pada on the Lifestealer in Game 1, and that was just relentless how fast he was with phase boots, drums. It ended up getting a Sange and Yasha in the end. It was just really promising, and they're actually going to pick up the Lifestealer again, so good call there, but the Wisp finally comes out. They're finally going to try to pull this out and see if they can make something happen with this very versatile and dynamic hero. I love a Wisp in general, and to see it picked up, we haven't seen it in paiN's lineups just yet, so I'm curious to see, first of all, what player will pick it up, and second of all, how they're going to use this effectively, because the overcharge is amazing with Lifestealer, making Feast just hit really quickly on high HP heroes like the Darkseer, and then of course the global gank style is also going to be very aggressive.
Yeah, this is actually a really interesting pickup. Picking up a Phantom Lancer when you're going against a Lifestealer or Wisp combination, you're not going to be able to have as much lane presence, and you're not going to be able to go around and support your allies like you would perhaps on something like a Gyrocopter. So 3D is really saying that, you know what? We're just going to go and hope for the late game. But the way they play it out is actually a little bit different. They don't support Nexus that much in lane. They don't go and guarantee him completely protected farm. They actually go and try to put a lot of pressure on the other side of the map and get their supports a lot of levels. In that first game, for example, we saw the Leshrac not going and harassing any of the enemy, anyone on the enemy tri-lane, but instead really aggressively pulling and just trying to get as much farm and levels on them as possible. We might see a similar kind of thing here. They just rely that Nexus, when he's given a moment, will be able to go and pick up that farm somewhere. And in the meantime, the rest of the team will try to get some sort of advantage based off, aggressive roaming supports and Sharfik's stellar mid play.
Yeah, most definitely. So this will be interesting how it goes. They actually do ban out the Lone Druid, as they're kind of afraid of a little bit of the lineup they saw in the first round, where they have a Lone Druid that they can't necessarily deal with, and an aggressive tri-lane that just won't stop putting pressure on the Phantom Lancer early on. So from here, I don't know if the Wisp is the best tri-lane, aggressive tri-lane support, because of the fact that he only has the one stun and not that much damage output, but either way, once the Wisp gets some dedicated experience, either through if they can get some picks off in the early game, or if they just go for a lot of stacked neutral pulling, when Wisp does hit that relocate up, it's going to be a lot of potential to gank up aggressively. All you need is a simple dust, and as long as the PL doesn't have a diffusal blade yet, you're going to be able to do immense pressure there. You just have to have good vision, good understanding of where the enemies are and how they're going to respond.
Yeah, with paiN on their last ban, I would really hope that they go and try to ban out that Bane. 3D hasn't used it yet, but it would be very strong in this lineup. And I think if the Lifestealer gets locked down, they're going to be in a very rough spot. Also, a hero to note is that Beastmaster. Both of these heroes, with their ultimates going right through that rage, are going to be able to really limit Nake's potential. And also, I have a feeling that Sharvik would be an absolute nightmare on paiN and Beastmaster. His aggression is definitely noted, and those are two heroes where you can be super, super effective.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty awesome there. Now, paiN taking Sharfik's Storm Spirit off the table, as well as the Enigma, which was rather problematic in the last time around. I think that would be something that they would have to fear to some extent, and taking that out, it makes it so that they don't have to worry about the big black vacuum plus black hole. I almost combined them together to make blackcume, but I don't know. I don't think that's a thing. So, do we see the Brewmaster taking off as well? And honestly, I haven't seen a Brewmaster pick in an extended period of time. I mean, actually, I probably would have seen it a couple days ago, but it's not that common. It's just one of those heroes that adds a lot to it, the lineups, and has a lot of disable potential, but in and of himself hasn't really seen too much action in the current meta. So he could go on the aggressive tri-lane, and that's something they're afraid of there, but it's not going to be the biggest deal one way or another. As far as these pickups, though, popping off the Queen of paiN for some really early aggression. We saw King RD take that for the solo safe lane in game 1, but could be used very effectively on the mid lane as well, so we'll have to see. Or actually, on the off lane is perfectly fine too. She's very escapable. You can't necessarily disjoint the Spirit Lance. It'll still follow you on through the blink, but at least you'll be out of harm's way, and that will be effective enough. But either way, I kind of think that 3D is once again picking up a very mana-hungry lineup. The baiN is one of those heroes with low base intellect, high mana cost in really early on with the spells, and you can say the same just about every hero. The Rubik with his Fade Bolt, Darkseer, and Phantom Lancer, they're going to need either some Soul Rings or, again, some really early Arcane Boots.
Yeah, I think baiN Soul Ring is probably one of the strongest items you can pick up because basically it's free with that Brain Sap. It gives you free access to Brain Sap is what I mean to say. But if they also just have, Rubik and baiN with Arcane Boots, I think is going to be enough to support the mana pools. Unless that, I think that's going to be a mid-tiny. I have a sneaking suspicion.
But they also want him to be able to carry, because Wisp Tiny is insane. I mean, Wisp Lifestealer is very solid too, but pretty much this gives it an option. I think I think the idea of this right here is paiN Gaming has two great choices for carries, and as long as one of them gets farmed, they're perfectly fine. So if they get kills with a Lifestealer, if they get last hits with a Tiny, either way, as soon as one gets a big item, like an Armlet or an Aghanim Scepter, to dish out a huge amount of damage, obviously those are pretty different in scale, but either way, the Wisp will be able to pick and choose, okay, I want to tether to this guy, he's full HP and ready to rock and roll, quite literally with the Tiny, and then from there, overcharging up and dishing out a ton of damage. So kind of picking and choosing, as long as one gets good farm, it will be immensely amplified by whichever the Wisp is going to be supporting directly, and then from there, getting the Ags will also provide a nice counter to the Phantom Lancer with the AoE.
Yes, but if they go, excuse me, if they go for that Tiny farming, that means the Queen of paiN is going to be have to go onto the... Oh, sorry. No, you're right. Who's going to be the long lane, I guess what I mean to say.
Yeah, that's going to be more difficult. I mean, we could see aggressive tri-lane, but the Wisp doesn't really favor that circumstance unless he's with the Tiny. The combo of the Tiny tossing the Wisp and tethering back to get the stun off to initiate for Avalanche, it can be rather promising, especially with a Shadow Demon, which you can also toss into Disrupt. So that kind of damage output, if they're confident in their 3v3, can work out pretty well. But now they're going up against a Clockwork, which is a great hero for picking apart fights. So I'm curious. I think they could make an aggressive tri-lane work and then just farm one of the other two, either the Tiny or the Lifestealer, on a safe lane, but they're going to go 1 versus 1 against a Clockwork, and I'm not sure if that's going to be as favorable as they intend.
This might be Sharvik on the Clockwork, actually.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right,
because the thing is, the problem here is that I think the Darkseer, if they're putting either the Tiny or the Nakes on the safe lane, the Darkseer can just creep skip, and we saw that in some of the games yesterday. There's nothing that, for example, a Lifestealer can do, and that tower's going to go down very quickly, so they're putting themselves in a very awkward situation. They have a lot of very powerful heroes, but their laning is going to be fairly weak. Maybe, I think that, for example, the safest route for them would be to go and farm the Nakes, put Tiny mid, and the Queen of paiN top, but I don't think that's what they're going to go for in the end. I think they're going to go for something a little bit more high risk, high reward.
But paiN has gone some very dynamic lanes previously, and like you said, they're kind of weak, but if they get just a little bit of a ball rolling, if they get this first blood with the smoking, for example, they can really, really turn that into something big, and Sharvik is a little bit, he's going to see it now. Do they have any kind of disables to start things off? They do have this tether going through, but beautiful cog reaction from Clockwork. Even if with the disruption, it just would be too little too late, and they don't want to follow through with that. So that is going to pretty much dissuade them from pursuing any further. Popping off a 3-minute block with that sentry ward on towards the easy camp will help out the top lane in some regard, but it does show they want to contest the top lane. They're not going to go next jungle and go for like 3.510. They definitely want to send somebody up there, and the only one I can think would reliably be able to do that is King RD on the Queen of paiN, but he already skilled up Shadow Strike, and he doesn't, I mean, he has a bunch of stats and HP regen, so I guess it is going to, well, I really don't know, because...
They're just going to seed the top lane. They're going to be like, okay, Phantom Lancer can farm, we can't really contest that, and this is going to be a jungle lifestealer, perhaps doing mid pulls with the Wisp. And they kind of didn't run away quite far enough and weren't able to go and get the Wisp to tether in. But once they go and drop down these trees, they're going to do mid pulls and get some farm that way, and eventually perhaps rotate the trailing top. But
it makes sense, but do you think that Sentry Ward up on the easy camp is just to delay Serva's farm in the jungle?
yeah, I think more than that, we've seen that 3D has shown a tendency to go and always want to pull to this easy camp and then pull it to the medium camp down there. So can you see when I drop? So like if they like to doing this pull, right? And if you were able to block this off, then you're in a much better position. Mind, it's a fair bit less effective now than it was previously, because right now there's going to be no one to really benefit from that experience now, and they can just go and stack the medium camp right here. But it is something, and I think that if they're able to keep Darkseer down for a bit, it's going to be fairly effective.
Yeah, most definitely. Queen of paiN, King RD actually took a lot of damage going toe-to-toe with Sharvik here. Actually got caught in by the cogs kind of unexpectedly there, and just had pretty much no choice but to just 1v1 him for a while without the blink available. And popping off the first salve, the rocket was able to cancel that, and now Shadow Striking a creep. Everything going wrong for King RD in this lane. He's dropped down to 200 HP. Sharvik has another rocket, so the salve can come on through finally, but it's still putting him in a spot he doesn't want to be in, and that means that Lifestealer is going to have to really, really stay on top of those mid pulls now that he's stacked up the easy camp here.
Yep, but you know, 3D is going to have that natural radiant mid-pull advantage on the mid lane, so I think that eventually King RD is going to be able to very easily come back from this. He's lasting very well, rather, under the tower, and Sharvik is basically forced to just go and spam out all his mana using rockets. He does have that bottle available now, but I think he's just going to be relegated to the role of bottle crowing, while RD can go and get pretty much every single rune with that blink.
Yeah, so... interesting pull action going on. Actually, only getting the range creep out of that means that he's not going to be able to farm up as much as he wants to, or deny Sharvik as much as they intended. But in general, it's still going to be enabling Lifestealer to have something going on, right? He's in a position where he's sitting at 1 CS. He really just wants to make sure that there is some money coming in for him, because he does need items. He does at least need to get some attack speed, if not some strength, to be able to sustain in the middle of a fight. Because Bane's Fiend's Grip is still one of those abilities that pierce right on through the rage, and he can be focused down so aggressively because of his low base armor. We do see a disruption coming in from Grent. They are going to be able to know the Cog's pushing him back. That means that a Shadow Strike will come out very belatedly. Sharvik wants to try to turn around and get a kill onto the Queen of paiN, but with the blink away, it looks like he's going to be first blood with nothing in turn. 4 HP on the Queen of paiN through that rocket, but it's not enough. So that is going to be another salve coming on through, and inevitably the first blood, 3 committed to it, and they were able to pick it off to make sure that the Queen of paiN has an advantage going up against Sharvik here.
Yep, and that's just going to go in against Snowball when she's able to get access into all those runes, sitting at full HP now, and I believe that both runes are going to be camped by Radiant supports. The Darkseer and the Bane. Oh, the Bane is actually sitting in lane. There's actually just trying top right now. They've got a point in Juxtapose, and they're looking to push down this tower. Does anyone have a Basilius picked up yet? No, not quite, but even with just those illusions and the fact that they decided to stack the range creeps due to one single pull, they're going to be able to get a fair amount of damage on, but I don't know if they're going to be able to actually finish the tower without a siege unit.
But siege unit will be coming in the next wave, I believe, so yeah, timing is right for it, and even if they don't bring it down in this one here, they're going to be able to keep that push rolling aggressively, a couple range creeps to help that out, and yeah, like you said, the Basilius would help immensely with the bonus armor to the creeps, but it's still going to enable them to bring it down below 50% with this next wave, and from there, really, really contest it for possibly getting an early kill.
Yeah, I think that actually this will be able to go down unless there's some movement. It seems like the Grent has come down to try to contest, but as a Shadow Demon, there's absolutely nothing he could do. And to be honest, there's almost nothing that any hero can do. Perhaps if the Tiny was at full HP, he could go and roam in, but he does have that salve, but unless he decides to TP, yeah, it's already gone. I think that was the best trade that 3D could make at this point, because there's no way they were winning mid, and they need to go and get some map control. Oh my god, okay, no. I thought Queen of paiN got a kill for a second. I'm like, she's not near anyone. That's unreasonable.
For sure, no, just picking up the bottle rune. But look at the GPM on the Phantom Lancer, that topping out still at the top of the last hits, and getting the last hit on that tower brings them up to 500, and from there he is going to be able to move in towards the world is his oyster. He can pick up whatever items he feels necessary, and comparing that to the lifestealer, paiN is just very, very gradually farming away. He can sustain up against these creeps, but he cannot really increase his GPM that much. It's a very, very slow jungle roll, and from there he's going to get maybe one significant item, but even the armlet timing is going to be pretty poor.
Yeah, I think that, they've just kind of seeded that when they decided to let the Tiny go and be the primary farmer. He's gone for the Treads build, and this means he's probably going to go straight Treads Ags. If you wanted to go for the Drums build, you'd start with Phase. And this basically is the generally considered to be the proper choice when you're in a complete free farm lane. And he is farming quite well. He's sitting at about 6 creeps a minute, and that's without, any kind of additional padding from jungle creeps. So if he's able to get that Ags at a reasonable time, that means he's going to be able to cleave through all the PL illusions. It's basically going to come down to who can hit that, 25 minutes faster between Nexus and this Tiny.
Mm-hmm. Clockwork seems to be ranking up Rocket to have a little bit of AoE presence, being able to burn down creep waves quickly if he's left alone, or be able to dish out damage across globally. Of course, you have to be pretty well timed on those, but it's pretty much the standard build to only have one battery assault, even in a solo lane where you can have some advantage and maybe get a kill on the Queen of Pain because she can't blink on out. It's still much more reliable to make sure you can just CS a bit with the Rocket and also dish out a ton of damage as well as initiate long range.
Yep, and I believe that's his wand as well, so those Shadow Strikes are going to become less and less effective. He's got boots, a bottle, and a wand, and I wouldn't be surprised if once he hits level 6 for him to try to roam around. Mm-hmm. That's the other advantage of getting that early top tower. It's not as effective as being able to push down their bot tower. You don't have access into the enemy jungle yet, but what it does mean is that you're able to go and put on a lot more pressure because there's more space where the enemy doesn't know, and that additional map control on a hero like Clockwork is super relevant because he can go for those really, really aggressive long-range hooks.
Mm-hmm. And right now there's no wards on the map for the time being, with the exception of the one that was placed down on bottom ruins. So from there, Clockwork does have some potential to roam.
Top lane, I believe that Nexus is
really going to be able to dive it effectively. It gets disruption up for the time being, so it's just putting pressure off. But even forcing the Shadow Demon off the lane is very, very immense right now because he's sitting at level 4 and only slightly ahead of the Rubik/Bane. And from there, that means that if he's not able to watch the creeps die underneath the tower, if he feels threatened in that sense, then even the position of Shadow Demon right here, he's going to be able to force off the tower and make sure that doesn't fall, but not really be able to get the experience he's looking for to move towards getting his ultimate and having a higher HP pool for teamfights.
Yep. I think that he really, really needs to tank up, because otherwise, as you said, he's just immediately dead. And his role is actually much more important than it seems.
Coming on in mid,
it looks like
Cogs always disengaging that, and even with the rage, they can walk on around, but he'd just be putting himself in a poor position that the King RD would not be able to support him within. So that's not something he wants to commit to. And again, this is only a level 5 lifestealer, so his experience per minute, although he is technically soloing the jungle, is barely above the Shadow Demons, which I was already mentioning isn't the best. So that is putting him in a position where he's just going to try to get something. It looks like a phase boost is going to be on his shopping list, but from there he's really going to be relying a lot on the Tiny to make something happen. Speaking of, the Wisp does have that relocate available and maybe wants to make something happen, but the spirits were actually wasted here. Going on the mid lane, looking for Sharfik. The Cogs are going to push out the Wisp, or however Tiny was in there. Doesn't get the stun off, unfortunately. Now put in a terrible spot, tossing him back out, trying to do some damage here. The Scream goes on through, but it's going to be King RD to fall first. Sharfik dropping low, but there's no follow-up, and they're just going to relocate right back on down to bottom lane. So despite committing a Wisp and a Tiny and going in 4 versus 2, essentially, the Clockwork gets a return kill, and that's forcing out the first relocate of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's basically the absolute worst thing that could happen. They went in, they tried to get a kill on the solo mid. It didn't work, and on top of that, the Queen of Pain died, and that's experience going straight to that Bane, who now has access into the Fiend's Grip. It's only going to get more and more difficult from here on out.
So beyond that, we do see the Diffusal Blade come out on the Phantom Lancer in just a moment, and that's going to help him quite a bit. Like I said, he can dispel dust. Even if the Wisp jumps on in there, they're going to have to commit sentries or gems to be able to guarantee a kill. And beyond that, it's just making sure that he can stay active with his mana burns. His illusions will be able to dish out that much more damage, and he can transition in towards a more tanky item after the fact. So move in towards a Vitality Booster or Heart long term, and the Diffusal Blade is all he really needs to make sure he has the aggressive aggressive thing that he's looking for. Sharfik dueling it out, doesn't have the hook shot for the time being, so he's just going to get some good hits with that double damage in up against King RD, but he is so low that with this ultimate popping off from the screen blink, almost bringing him down. Sharfik wants to trade hits here, bottling up as much as possible, but it's going to be his death before anything comes out. Dread just a little bit too slow to the action to commit either the Fiend's Grip or the Brain Sap, so that was a really, really nice pick-off for the Queen of paiN, and really catapults her into a commanding role in this game, setting up for 420 plus experience per minute, and yeah, that's really, really good for them.
Yeah, one thing to note there is the Queen of paiN was able to get in that great position because she bursted down all of the other creeps, so that meant, and so while her creeps were still around, so that meant that Clockwork got very bad rolls on his battery assault, and the Queen of paiN was able to just sit there and auto-attack while taking basically no damage, because Clockwork's right-click is not that impressive. In the meantime, though, it looks like Tiny has been farming quite well. He is, in fact, going for that straight Ags rush. He has the point booster up, but if you compare his farm to Phantom Lancer is still ahead, and I feel that this is something they really cannot afford. Phantom Lancer's basically hit that golden point where you have about 72 creeps in 10 minutes. He's sitting at 69, but considering the fact he's been pushing so aggressively, it's a really... This is like Nexus is showing off his chops here. This is actually a fairly difficult thing to pull off.
Absolutely. So from there, it looks like the laning phase is broken down just a little bit. They might want to try to take a tower with the Tiny to give him that extra boost that we saw the Nexus pick up very, very early on in the game. But from there, with a little bit of rune control, I think they could start roaming together as a multi-person group. Pada kind of trying to go down on bottom lane to contest Nexus a bit, but he's just going to have to watch the creeps fall by the wayside, because other than sitting underneath his tower, he doesn't have much opportunity to actually go toe-to-toe, and he has no idea that Solo and Dread are right nearby and could go in just after following a Spirit Lance with some good disables. So that is pretty much the timing. It is questionable for this. Even a Fusel Blade could allow them to close the distance a bit more, but for the time being, it looks like they're roaming on around edge of Radiant Wards. So Solo, not so secret, but the initiation comes on through with that Fiend's Grip. Next is going to be delivering a lot of right clicks with all the illusions that have spawned. They're going to be able to pick that off. Queen of paiN picking up a kill on the Clockwork, and Phantom Lancer, of course, picking up that kill on the Nexus. So onto, sorry, Pada. But yeah, did you catch that kill on bottom lane?
No, I was still looking at the Phantom Lancer, that's my bad.
No problem at all, but there was a relocate involved, and yeah, King RD was able to burst it down just with the Scream and the assistance of the Tiny. Now they want to put pressure on the tier 1 tower on bottom, but Dread coming on through, pulling Tiny into a bad spot with that Nightmare, picked up by Billy instead. He's going to allow Fuga to escape and then just tether away safely to the Tiny, and they don't really have enough follow-up to lock him down for the moment.
Yeah, I mean, just strong play from the Tiny, from the Wisp, showing...
Oh, going on, turning it around with the open wounds, with the Avalanche going across. Sharfik does have that hook shot, but no. It's almost too late. Wow, a lot of damage coming on through, but paiN survives.
Yeah, he actually ended up cogsing his own Darkseer right there, and that just led them to be in a really rough spot, but now Queen of paiN herself has to back off, and I think this is just going to be a lot of people going in. A lot of name calling and not much killing. A lot of name calling and much killing.
But they do have the hook shot, trying to line it up. That Queen of paiN is on low mana. They have the rocket in 3 seconds, and not technically the range. So they're going to have to look at Grant down on the bottom here. They looked over him. He's right in range. After he walks out of range of the defusal, actually, you can just right-click him down. Doesn't even need to have to pop off the ulti. Nexus comes in with the Spirit Lance to clean it on up and take down a tower. So looking at how 3D Clan has been transitioning their successful team fights into actual permanent gains. These towers have been dropping pretty quickly here. The tier 1 and tier 2 up on top, and now this tier 1 down on bottom. Comparing that to having not lost a single tower themselves, they are moving very, very rapidly towards a substantial gold gain and gold advantage here, moving in towards 5k. So that is exactly where they want to be on top, and it can't be underestimated how important it is to get that early gold on all these different heroes. The Darkseer with that mechanism, getting some more mana to work with for the baiN is essential, and then from there they can play more and more aggressively with more durability, with more spells and sustainability in their arsenal.
Yep, and also if you're looking at this Phantom Lancer's build, he's definitely going for this super combat prepared build. This is actually, if you grab and at the timing he's got it, it's also very deadly.
Relocate coming on through. They're going to try to initiate on this. Big Spirit's coming on, but it's actually rank 4. A lot of damage coming through. Nice ulti from Sharfik, hitting almost everybody. Dread is going to walk away from this. The Queen of paiN ulti already popped. Fiend's Grip going through on Pada. He is going to get dropped down 100%, and now they're trying to turn it around onto Queen of paiN, who only option is to jump on back, and with a Surge, Iron Shield up, Phantom Lancer gets tossed back in. Nice play from Fuga, tossing him back away, but it's still enough damage to bring down the Queen of paiN and be in pursuit of the Tiny. They have the Diffusal Blade, can pop it off and burn him down right here. So they do end up saving the Shadow Demon, but unfortunately the Queen of paiN and Tiny both drop down for a 4-for-1 in the end.
Yeah, and that's going to be the tower seated as well, and that's just more gold going towards Nexus. He's already finished that Django, and he has, a little bit more in the bank. If he's able to get his heart up and by, about the 20-minute mark, I don't think there's anything that the Radiant can do. Tiny went for this, fast Axe build, so he'd be able to deal with the, Oh, it looks like I'm gone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I actually have the same exact issue. It might be a Steam server thing.
Yep. So I'm gonna. Oh, it looks like. Well, anyway.
Yeah.
But just going back to it, the Tiny went for this build, so he's able to go and cleave up the. Okay, are you good?
Yeah, I'm just perfect now. It looks like the stream didn't drop any packets, so it definitely seems to be something on the Dota 2 end.
Yep. Why is he running? He can just go slay.
Technically, but he doesn't know the follow-up. There is, of course, the Wisp nearby. The Lifestealer was up and available as well, so just didn't want to have to deal with that, most likely. And the Deny does come out.
Yep. Anyway, back to, okay, so Tiny went for this fast leave, so he's able to go and deal with the Phantom Lancer in the mid-game, but I don't think he expected the Phantom Lancer to play so aggressively from so much early on, because his actual contribution to fights right now is very limited. He doesn't have, the Arcane Boots to support a lot of spell spamming, he doesn't have the Blink Dagger to engage, he doesn't have the Phase into Drums to go and get off a lot of right-clicks and do a ton of damage and have that mobility available. So he's in an awkward spot right now where he needs to go and farm up maybe for another 7 minutes before he can really get online, because he wants to have that Axe and he wants to probably have a Yasha on top of that to really become effective. They need to... Oh, was he able to get... Okay, he got the Scream there, and that's going to be fairly effective. They're going to be able to pressure this tower quite nicely.
The feeds are coming out onto King RD. They're going to go on through with this double damage rune. Nice defensive disruption, though. Going to cancel it on out. He's going to blink on away. No, hook shot to cancel it. Do they get the damage? The Scream follows and will finish off the kill. Nexus helping out with that on the front line. There is the Wisp Tiny going on through, trying to get a kill, but nothing so far. And Nexus is just slaying on the back end, getting a pick off after pick off. Looking to the Lifestealer. One more right click is all they have. They have the Spirit Lantern. They should be able to finish him. So Pada is going to drop down if they just have vision. Surged up, he does take a fall, and now Fuga is the next target choice. Gets a kill on solo with one more right click. No, telekinesis dub. Will survive. Oh my god, beautiful toss. Yeah. Kind of Kobe dunk right there, being able to slay up the Rubik, but he just pops the buyback, and in the end, Nexus picks up that triple kill. So now looking for the tier 1 pickoff, and they can turn this into a tier 2 easily. Tiny in the grave for 33. The ultimate of the Queen of Pain is the only thing stopping them.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to be able to do here, because just one Lance is going to make that Queen of Pain have to back up. The thing is, with the levels, just, being level 13, having that 4.1 agi gain and 4 points in Juxtapose, there's a fair chance that he's going to be able to go and just replicate onto the Queen of Pain with, just a Lance. Is that Blink stolen? Yo, yeah, he got Blink now. The Rubik has Blink, and that's going to be fairly...
yeah, he was in a bad spot there, but able to Blink on out. A lot of damage coming through. Servo pops off a nice wall, but burst it down too hard with some focus coming out of Pada and with the Soul Catcher active, and of course committing the Queen of Pain ultimate. So from there, they're going to have to fall back, but it's at the cost of a simple Darkseer. They got the tower kill on the tier 1 and some damage into the tier 2. They overstayed their welcome a little bit, but they didn't pay for it all that much. We've seen a lot of different fights where they underestimate certain teams underestimate the enemy, and they lose like 4 or 5 heroes. They lost one. They'll say, okay, that was a bit of a misstep, but we can easily still keep the pressure rolling. They still have a huge gold advantage, and they're going to try to turn this into a Roche kill.
Yep, and now Nexus has finished that drums and is going for the Yasha, and Yasha is one of those items that, it's a little bit less combat preparedness, but when you have the Django to supplement your HP, it's quite useful, and beyond that, it makes you farm a lot faster, just because you're proccing more illusions off of that increased attack speed, and, you're going and moving faster. One of the reasons that Anti-Mage is one of the fastest farmers in the game is because he can blink to always make sure he gets to the farm that he needs to get. The Yasha works a similar way on Phantom Lancer, but just letting him run to the spot he needs to go to, and synergizes very well with the Manta style. Synergizes very well with his kit because it gives him more illusions to play with, and that means more burn going to that Queen of Pain. They've picked up the Roshan, and with that smoke, they weren't quite able to get the Nexus on it, but they should be able to make something happen here. They're about to go and headbutt that Tiny.
Yeah, going right on in there. He doesn't have that much mobility. Fiend's Grip right off the bat to burn him down, and Billy just has to watch as his ally falls. The relocate attempt, but unfortunately that means that... Oh, funny place for it too. But either way, that just means that Billy's going to be relocated right back on, and unfortunately be dropped down, so poor little Billy. The little star that could, but unfortunately is right back to his demise, and that is one very, very dead support. So from there, that is a couple of other extra kills on the board, and they're going to be able to probably take down this tier 2 as a final result. They've been pushing at it for a while, but if they really want it this time around, there's nothing really to stop them.
Yep, and at this point, there's no place for the Tiny and the Nyx, especially the Nyx to farm. The jungle is being warded up. They're playing against a Clockwork. They're playing against a Bane, who is getting dangerously close to that Blink Dagger. If the tower goes down, he will have it. And with those two heroes around, and the Phantom Lancer just sending his own illusions into your jungle, farming your jungle while he farms 2 lanes, I don't know what they're going to be able to do. Without any items, they're not going to be able to contest it. This is going to be a Phantom Lancer with a Manta style in very, very short order.
Yeah, breaking out 11.5k net worth. It's just ridiculous now, and his durability is rather substantial with the drum pickup there, and the Manta will help that out in pretty much the exact same way. So they're actually sieging high ground. Do you feel this is a little bit overconfident coming out of them, or do you think they can actually manage this pretty effectively with Queen of paiN currently up top?
As long as they go and keep Nexus in front and make sure that he tanks the brunt of their damage, I think it's fine. They're willing to burn an Aegis to get damage on the tower, it seems.
Yeah, it looks like paiN just wasted Dust Charge, unfortunately. Nexus will just shrug that off in a moment, and from there they, can definitely try to go for this big siege here. In the meantime, taiN is really struggling to stay on top of things, stay afloat here. He is level 11 and only has that Ag Spreads, so he does pop off some nice abilities here, but now with the Avalanche in the hands of Solo, there's a lot of damage that could come out, and from there they're just trying to burn them down gradually with Disruption, pulling Nexus out of position for the time being, but just getting surged on away. They're going to be able to walk away, and they did lose their Tier 1 tower, but also took half of a Tier 3, which is going to help them later on when they want to try to go for more extensive high ground pokes and sieges.
Yeah, one thing to note is that paiN has actually maxed Enfeeble at this point. That level 4 Enfeeble is going to make taiN hit like a joke. He's going to be cleaving with 80 damage. It's going to be completely
big Spirits
irrelevant.
damage coming out. That was ridiculous, and I feel they have to disengage here. Sorry. They do actually pop off the Disruption, so they're going to try to engage very shortly, but there's a lot in the arsenal of 3D Clan that can allow them to just force away from the fight, disengage 100%, and yeah, what were you saying? Sorry.
Oh yeah, no, the Enfeeble is going to make taiN hit like a joke. He has no attack speed, and with another minus 120 armor, minus 120 damage, he's just going to be fairly irrelevant in fights if paiN is able to land that. This is actually a really good skill build and just shows good itemization. It seems like he's actually going for a BKB.
Yeah, Serva is completely toast here. The Infest comes out along with the Avalanche, even Toss to make sure of it, and that is 100% a kill. And now they could, honestly, I think they should just right-click this Tier 1 tower. They'll leave back in base in a moment anyway, and they have the Aghanims, but they're just going to let the Wisp fly away, and from there they go for a 2-man on the tower. But if they don't TP on out, they do have a scroll on both of them, but they need to be able to outmaneuver them right now, and the Fiend's Grip instead cancels it on out, and Fuga is unfortunately dead. So I feel they could have jumped on that tower a little bit earlier, and maybe even gotten it through with the Relocate, and then gone for a Rage TP, but it did cost them the life of the taiN for just a Tier 1, and they need to keep him farming. Right now, sitting at 109 CS, like you said, the Illusions of the Phantom Lancer can go out in the jungle, farm out on the lane, push down towers, and taiN isn't contesting that for the time being as far as staying afloat in the GPM department.
Yeah, I think King D is doing the exact right decision. He's picked up that Axe for a little bit more additional AoE, and beyond that, he's gone and put down 2 towers all on his own. Oh, God, Cogs is so irritating.
Yeah, like that would be surely at least bring them down to 20% HP by themselves if he didn't have the Cogs, but because they can't go through that passageway, 100% shutting them down through that, it would have been Queen of paiN going out on a limb and not willing to commit to something like that. Does have Aghanims up, so this continuous push that's been going through from the 3D Clan can be shut down a little bit more hardcore, but because it's only rank 2 Sonic Wave, because Queen of paiN's experience has not been anywhere near that of the Phantom Lancers, she's actually still looking at a 70-second cooldown, which is possibly substantial enough.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's not going to be but she's going to playing away from the team quite often. She's just come back right now to defend the push, and I think she'll get like level 16 in pretty short order. One thing to note is that Darkseer is going for one of my favorite items, one of my, secret items, which is this Shiva's, and it's going to be very effective this game, just dealing with that Nyx and dealing with that taiN. But if they're pushing before they have it, I don't see the reasoning. They can just wait 400 gold for them to have that Shiva's, because that plus damage and just the minus attack speed and move speed slow is going to be very, very relevant. They're kind of forcing something they don't need to force. They can even honestly just wait out, for another 6 minutes, 8 minutes maybe, and Nexus can go and show up with a full heart. I understand the reasoning. They have an Aegis that's only up for another minute. They want to make something happen.
A lot of damage coming into Nexus. The Aegis out of hookshot coming in. Sharpik going to be able to pick off Shadow Demon right here, and good Cogs positioning, making sure that King RD is out by himself for the time being. Yeah, there is a Fiend's Grip on the taiN. He's going to get dropped down 100%. Billy having no choice, doing the Relocate thing again, and unfortunately still not pulling out his teammate. Instead, there is going to be that taiN jumping on through Fuga, bot back, and is trying to bring down Nexus, but the Aegis is still intact, and he can pretty much do whatever he wants to right here, just kind of rampaging around the base, the creep wave pushing it on the tower, and instead all that remains is the Queen of paiN without an ultimate, the Nyx infested inside, and one enfeebled up taiN, which again, despite his powerful ultimate, he's not able to do the damage output that he's intending.
Yeah, I mean, he's just doing about 80 damage right now. It's just not enough, especially when you go for a build that really relies on you being able to do massive amounts.
They're still kind of trying to engage on this, trying to defend the tier 3 here, and the Clockwork is taking a lot of damage and is going to be dropping very, very quickly. Tiny tries to swing, but then Feeble, he really, really doesn't do the damage he needs to output. The Avalanche picking up the kill on the Clockwork on the back end, but they're still going to keep going. Nexus's Aegis has expired, though. Serva on the run. They're going to fall back from here, but they at least were able to take the tier 3, and in the meantime, they forced out a buyback or two. Tiny was the only one to buy back, but it definitely made it so that they could just show who was boss in the middle of their base, staying their welcome and just kind of, taking off their shoes and kicking up, because they were there for a full like minute and a half without really any contest.
And it's only going to get worse. That Bane has finally picked up a BKB, and if they're not able to interrupt that Fiend's Grip on, for example, the Nakes or the Tiny, I don't know where the damage is going to come from. Especially actually Queen of paiN. If Queen of paiN gets Fiend's Grip in the beginning of a fight, that long duration Ags Fiend's Grip, man, it's going to be. Oh, sorry, whoa. She has the Ags. Yeah, but if her Ags isn't able to get off in the fight, is what I mean to say, then that's just way too much damage that paiN is losing, and that's the only thing that I think is really keeping them in the game, is this Queen of paiN constantly spamming out screams and having that huge Ags, which is about to catch to level 16.
Yeah, and meanwhile, look at the levels. Although the Rubik is a little bit behind at level 10. Comparing that and juxtaposing him with the fact that their Lifestealer is also at that level. I mean, you have a level 10 Lifestealer 24, almost 25 minutes into the game alongside your two supports, which are level 9 and 8. You know that you're so far behind that he really can't contribute too much. Like, he jumps in with those relocate ganks and tries to go for Infest and do some damage output there, and we've seen it a couple times over, but it feels like that's something that they should have been doing from the second that they all got their ultis up. And right now, based on the fact that he was farming so lowly in the jungle and now is not having any independent farm because they want it all on Fuga so that he can actually get that damage output despite the enfeeble, it's very difficult.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Fuga's. It seems like he's got a Yasha coming up. Is that the completed Yasha on the courier?
Yeah, it is for him.
So that's going to help out a lot because he's going to be able to get in position and start right-clicking. But if he gets gripped, he's going to fall. He doesn't have a ton of HP to work with right now, sitting only at 1800. That Phantom Lancer is going to bring him down very quickly. The Phantom Lancer is hitting for 200 damage now, and that's the great thing about Phantom Lancer is the reason his kit works so well is all of that damage goes to his illusions. He is only building plus that fight.
Yeah, well, Clockwork was actually able to avoid just that with the... Oh my gosh, Dread going in with the BKB. Fiend's Grip on Queen of paiN. She did already pop out that ulti. Defensive Disruption coming on through. Prada wants to get some damage up. In the meantime, the Scream was stolen. Sonic Wave going on through. Big damage. But it's just going to be the Shadow Demon that takes a fall for the time being. And from there, everybody just has to fall back. Phantom Lancer had been pushing quite a bit on the top lane with those illusions. And from there, it's just really a lot of output that they didn't really see coming. They tried to go engage in that Clockwork, but a nice defensive hook shot meant that he was able to escape relatively unscathed, sitting at well above half HP, and from there they were able to counter-initiate and pick off the Shadow Demon, even if they did want the Queen of paiN. So I gotta say, I gotta hand it to Grent for his really nice disruption to keep the Quap up, but in the meantime it does cost him his life.
Yep. And here, there's that enfeeble on the Tiny, and he's not going to be able to do damage. At some point, it's going to be fairly difficult for him to even cleave down illusions.
Hookshot initiation, going on Grant again, so he's going to be able to pick him off 100%. The disruption will only delay the inevitable here, but it might be enough distraction in the meantime to get the damage output. Parada taking way too much, and he's going to be having to fall back from here. In the meantime, Fuga on low life. Nice stun coming on out, but Phantom Lancer on the front line will be able to right-click him down with the help of the Shivas. Ultimate coming out once again. Short CD for that Ags, but it's not enough to dissuade them. They're taking the kills, taking the racks, and they're going to walk away with a lot of gains from this engagement here.
Yeah, this is just even less farm. When these creeps start only delivering 20 gold, then Tiny's never going to be able to catch up with the items and get the items he needs to go and carry against his Phantom Lancer.
And Solo still has that Axe. He still has that Sonic Wave to come on through, burst down the Wisp, bring down the Lifesteal to critical levels, and they're hiding in their fountain, just quivering. They really, really want to try to turn this around and win this. This is, of course, Game 3. This is very, very critical for them to complete this matchup, but in the meantime, they are just taking too much. With that lane down, and like you said, the reduced gold gain, it feels like 3D Clan is completely in charge of what happens here.
Yeah, I mean, paiN's doing a valiant job trying to defend, trying to go and find some way to get themselves back into the game, but I just can't see it at this point. They're also going to lose another melee racks, and they don't even have to. Honestly, he could have just let the Nakes come and attack a couple times because there's nothing that Nakes can do against this army of Phantom Lancers.
Tiny coming on, does get a stun on 3 technically, but with this beautiful wall vacuum, they're going to be dropping down really quickly. Hook shot to make sure that the SD will pay with his life once more. Nexus, despite Soul Catcher, is just going to go on and burst down. Out of mana, Queen of Pain is going to be finished off real quick. One more right click through that, and Sharfik is actually nice Bane action, is going to be able to keep Sharfik alive in the end, sitting at 80 HP, got Nightmared up, and then immediately counteracted, but actually Prada able to pick off 1 and kill with the Infest. But the good games have called out, this is too much, too many ranks down, and unfortunately, paiN just not going to be able to stand against it. So, well played to 3D Clan as they take this third game win, 2-1 in this best of 3 series to win the match.
Yep, that was just a really exciting game on all parts, and I'm really happy to go and be able to cast it. paiN showing that they are a team to be reckoned with. You know, if they are able to go and get some sort of momentum, they can use it to completely shut down a game. I feel that this game didn't actually play to their strengths. They tried to go and just farm against that Phantom Lancer, and I feel that if they went for something a little bit more teamfight oriented, a little bit more mid-game oriented, they would have had a stronger... I think that's where their strengths lie, and I think they would have done a little bit better.
Most definitely, but Nexus kind of got out of hand there. He got a ton of money just right off the bat. I mean, he's still sitting at 7,100 right now, but he had 700 GPM. He was able to stay in the action, get a ton of kills and assists, never got dropped down once, despite the ever-present threat of a relocate Tiny Nakes. And from there, they were able to control quite effectively. Queen of Pain not doing as well as she wanted to up against the Clockwork on the mid lane, despite a little bit of pulling action from Lifestealer. And I gotta say, it kind of felt like in this game, as completely opposed to the game 1, the Lifestealer was actually holding them back quite a bit, picking up that hero that wasn't able to jungle very effectively and not contribute much more than a slow and a couple free right clicks. It really just wasn't what they were looking for, and he wasn't able to get off the ground. So that was very, very difficult for them. And although I think that heroes like Grent played really well with some nice disruptions, it just wasn't enough, and in the end, 3D Clan is going to be able to take this win.
Yep, I mean, great play from 3D. They showed their chops, and they came back from a very strong loss game 1 to just sweep the series and show that they're not going to roll over for just about anyone.
Most definitely. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We were very happy to cast this game. This is the last game here, as it was game 3 of the best of 3 series, with 3D Clan taking it 2-1. But this has been Blaze and Rainmaker, and thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Yep, cheers guys, GG's.